Come out of her, my people. Kuhemp. Hey, YouTube. I popularized this, by the way. It's written in the Bible. Come out of her, my people, lest you partake of her sins and receive of her plagues. Who's her? Babylon. What's Babylon? A system, a mindset. The way I typically use Kuhemp, and I think the way most of y'all reflect it back to me, is come out of the built up areas. Come out of the population zones and move to a more rural area. Why? I'm fond of saying many things. One of the things I'm fond of saying is that during terrible times, during Tiawaki, the end of the world as we know it, during WROL, without rule of law, during SHTF, shit hits the fan, you have two major threats. This is good news, because instead of you, one, saying, oh, the world's going to fall apart, man, and I've got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I have to do this, and I still have to do this, and I want to do this, and and you go running all over, and you get kind of panicky and breathless and everything. It's like, whoa, slow down there, buckwheat. You have two major threats for which you must prepare. Two major threats which you must ensure that you and yours are ready to deal with, dare I say, defeat. And once you know that, it allows you to simplify the process of preparation. And we could all use some simplicity in our lives, right? So what are these two major threats in terrible times? Starvation and people behaving badly. To mitigate starvation, got to do a couple things. Number one is stack it to the rafters. Stack food to the rafters for you and yours and your tribe, which I may address in this video and I may not. And then also have a way to produce food, because the minute you open that first 5-gallon bucket of emergency rations, start the stopwatch to starvation. Two biggest threats, starvation and people behaving badly. Starvation's coming at the end of your last bucket, and if you opened your first bucket, that's how much time you have. And so you need to produce food, and so you need to work on that. Where can one produce food? Anywhere. Where can one produce food in quantities, mass quantities, remember that? In quantities large enough to sustain your life. A rural area. And since this is YouTube, this is where we would typically get, although maybe I'm short-circuiting this comment, the comment of, well, Pastor Joe, you can do this and you can do that and you can grow in a little mini greenhouse with aquaponics and don't they? What are you doing? What are you doing? How much food are you producing in Cincinnati? See? Coulda, shoulda, woulda. That doesn't matter. Coulda, shoulda, woulda does not matter. What matters is what is. And I'm telling you, as a man who has lived in populated centers and as a man who now lives in the middle of nowhere, it is a lot easier to produce food in a rural area. Hence, come out of her, my people. Come out of the built-up areas. So that's starvation. What's the second thing? People behaving badly. There may be out here a criminal justice major person who knows the current stats, but you know, or police science. I had a lot of friends who were police science majors. Out of any given population of 100,000, there's a number of police officers that they need to have to be on duty for 100,000 population. It's a science, and that's given a generally law-abiding society, which most people in most places are, see, that leaves you outs, right? Most people in most places are generally law-abiding. But there's a certain percentage of criminals, right? People who do you wrong on purpose. Let times get a little bit less comfortable. Let times get a little bit harder, and there's going to be more criminals, The father, who didn't pay attention to the first threat, starvation, who looks at his 6-year-old daughter who has had nothing to eat in 3 days, who is literally wasting away before his eyes, and who grabs him weakly with her little hand and says, "Daddy, I'm hungry." He's going to go try and solve that problem of his daughter's starvation, and he's therefore going to become part of the problem. He will become a person behaving badly. And he's either going to make his own family's life miserable by not coming home or coming home shot, or he's going to make someone else's life miserable, right? Either way, not good. And there will be more and more criminals. I'm not that political, but I'm a realist. Defund the police movement, okay, whatever. But in many of the places where they have defunded the police, they've also made it really hard to be a cop in those areas. And so in addition to that, cops are quitting. And so there's much less law enforcement in those areas, which typically tend to be built up areas where there's already a fairly high, if you measure it across all of America, crime rate. Now it's out of control. I mean, in the shooting of this video, how many people will be murdered in Chicago? Well, in the shooting of this video, in my entire county, I guarantee you nobody's going to be murdered. I don't think there's been a murder in this county, let alone the cities that are within this county. I don't think there's been a murder for 10 years. Come out of her, my people. Get away from bad people doing bad things. Get away from people who today are law-abiding good people who are going to become bad people. Now, does that mean that there will be no bad people out in the country? No, there will be. There are. There's criminals in the country. And there will be people who are today law-abiding citizens who are going to become criminals, doing bad things to other people. But it's a numbers game, people. It's a numbers game per kilometer, per square kilometer, per square mile. There just won't be that many bad people. There's a lot of bad people where there's a lot of people. There's less bad people where there's less people. How many rounds does your handgun carry, right? So think about that. Think about coming out of her, my people, and moving. It's never been easier to work online, and the rural areas are getting put on the grid. That's another subject for another time, but there's some high-speed internet out here in these hills. And so if you can get a job where you don't have to go into the office, and they're out there and there's more every day, consider living rural. Consider coming out of her, my people. That's one thing. How long are we going? Because that's something else I want to talk to you about. We have a little bit more time. I was talking with somebody else today about how do you find people. Because here's the thing. As a prepper, we used to call ourselves survivalists. We're trying to ensure that we and ours, typically our household, make it through the bad times are coming when what? When there's just a dissolving of goods and services, when there's no one out there to help you, no one's coming to help you. You're on your own. Those of us who gravitate towards, one, that thought process, two, okay, I'm not just going to sit here and roll my thumb and suck my thumb and say Jesus is going to take care of me. We're actually going to take action. We're kind of individualists, rugged individualists. We're trying to be self-sufficient, meaning not have to rely on the system, not have to rely on others. So we tend to be that way anyway. And that works against us forming groups, or as I say on Patreon, crews. I just use the term because, Viking theme, we're on a boat, form a crew. Gang, you're gonna need people. You're gonna need people. And it's a theme I hit a lot because I get a lot of pushback from it. I get a lot of people telling me why they can't. I get a lot of people telling me how all the people in their area are hopeless. I just get a lot of, so I can tell people aren't, they ain't picking up, but I'm putting down. And so I hit it again and again and again until maybe you start having a clue in your head. Here's the reality. When it all goes down, when chaos reigns, when tomorrow China nukes our East Coast, people are going to band together, because there will be people out there doing bad things, and neighborhoods will say, not on my street, they're not. And you'll block off, two ends of your street or the cul-de-sac or whatever, and you're going to form a group. Or you live out in a rural area and you're going to start a neighborhood watch, or the Ranchers Association, or the Grange will come back into being. People are going to form up because, believe it or not, we are created as social creatures. It is not good that man should be alone. I will create him a helper suitable for him. Right? We're not supposed to be alone. We're supposed to be with other people. And modern technology has allowed us to think we have 135,000 friends on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and dun. Those aren't friends, people. It's not real. And modern technology allows us to only go where we want to go on the internet, only see what we want to see, only hear what we want to hear. And so we have low tolerance for people not like us. Well, that's going to change. And because I know, assuming you live, you're going to be in a group. I'm telling you, you're going to be in a group. What I want for you is that you're in a good group. And the only way to ensure that you're in a good group, and what does good mean? That's a relative term, but basically that it's all working out the way you kind of want it to for you and yours, and you can, again, look at the Father and say, I'm doing the best I can and I'm doing good things. You'd be happy with what I'm doing. The only way you can ensure that is to form your group now. Here's another thing, another phrase I invented. Islands of stability in a sea of chaos. If you have a functioning group of people, a crew, a mag, whatever you want to call it, but I submit that in the circumstances I see coming, you're going to need to be co-located. You're going to need to live together, proximate to each other. You're going to have to see your crew member's front porch so that you can back him or her up if the time comes. Them being 3 miles away ain't working, right? When seconds count, your mag is only minutes away, right? The way to do that, to make sure you're in a good mag, is to start forming one now. Start forming one now. And here's the thing. We're so lazy as people. I see people saying, I want to join a mag. Is there anybody out there? It doesn't work that way. It's desperation. I see the desperation in people's face, and I feel bad for you. I do. If there's anybody in Cincinnati that wants to form a mag, hit me up. No one's going to call you. No one good is going to call you when you do that. Why? Because they don't know you. They don't know you from Adam or Eve. They don't care. There's no buy-in. You can't short circuit the process. You have to go meet people in the meat world. M-E-E-T, meet people in the meat world. M-E-A-T, this stuff. You have to go meet people. You have to form relationships. You have to develop rapport and then establish trust before anyone's going to say, yeah, I'll put the lives of me and my family, I'll go in with you guys. We'll throw in together. And that's what you're going to need. And that's what you're going to do. There's so much denial out there on people. I don't need anybody. Everybody around here is meth head, and I don't like them, and I just soon I don't care. You'll see. Unfortunately, for many of you, you'll see too late. You need to meet people. So start working on that. If you haven't read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it was written forever ago. It's a good place to start. I was telling a story on Patreon where I was in a very rural gas station that I'd never been in before, and I started a conversation with everybody in line talking about how you need to stack food to the rafters, and that started a whole conversation. Have you ever seen one of those movies where people are stuck in an elevator in a high-rise, and there's like the black guy and the white kind of bigoted guy, and there's the young woman and the old woman, and it's all different people from different backgrounds, and then all of a sudden they're all working together to solve a problem, right? Or they're crashed on an island, or whatever. People are people. Start talking to people. For those of you of deep faith, I highly recommend you start with your church group. My church is clueless. None of them prepare. They don't see anything coming. Then you're going to the wrong church, yo. You are. Start your own church. Oh, what a concept. Yeah, Bible study, your house. What a concept. Here's the thing with the group of people you form up with, and then I'll get off. You need to first determine what are your core values as a man or a woman. What will you hang on to and not let go? The people you form your group with have to at least support you hanging on to that. Ideally, they have the exact same values. So if you are a hardcore religious person in this faith, and this is your world, and let's consider this thought. If you believe in God or a God or whatever, should not that be the most important thing in your life? I mean, no matter what, shouldn't it be? Again, another video for another time. You got to be with people that believe like you do, like-minded people. If you're living in an area where everyone is not like you, you're living in the wrong area. You're going to have to do the best you can with what you got where you're at. But start talking to people. Start talking to people. Start inviting people out, or you can go out to a restaurant together, or you can go fishing together, or go to the range together, or go whatever. And then let me tell you this. It's not just the person, it's their whole family. So however you meet and whatever thing, hey, you want to go to the range on Friday? Yeah, man, I like to go. You're going to have to do something with his family and your family, or her family and your family, you know, whatever. Because that's who's coming together. Most people, core value is their family. And what I'm talking about underneath their roof. To the extent that your family and my family banding together makes both our families better, that's a good place to start. Whole purpose of this video, people. You need people. Start working it. If you don't have people, it's going to be ugly. Get some people. Could make another t-shirt. Got people? Question mark. Like got milk. Got tribe. Tribe up. It's time. Take that for what it's worth. All right. I'll see you out there.